Welcome to Synchronicity. I put that song back on because everyone keeps asking me what it is, and so I'll just get it out of the way. It's a remix I'm working on. I've tabled it for a little bit because I'm working on my album, but it's a remix of a song called Owl, of course, by She Keeps Bees. So if you want to hear the original, you can find that on wherever you listen to music. If you want to hear my version, you got to wait until I finish it. It's good, I know. It's fucking great, but I got to finish it. And I got other things I got to do in the meantime. So today's guest, we have a guest, Sean Coan. Oh boy, this guy has taught me a lot about a lot. And specifically in the realm of tarot, decans, Kabbalah, astrology. I know Sean from CryptoSync. This is not an ad for CryptoSync. Welcome to the new members who joined this week. It's a weird place, that Discord server. It is shifted through many permutations, a hardcore, incredibly active, money-focused crypto server, which I'm sure I can sense that's coming back, to an imaginal exploration of people's psyches and shared psychic phenomenon. It's just a really weird place. But throughout that, Sean has emerged as a consistent voice of reason, sanity, and understanding. And it's just been a pleasure getting to know him. And yeah, you're going to hear why in this episode. So I actually hadn't spoken to Sean via the phone or audio that much because the server is like, it's mainly chat. Text to chat. So, but I've been getting to know him because I have encouraged him, and I'm the one to blame if this goes poorly for him, and it won't. It's a joke. He started a tarot. I basically was like, dude, you know tarot and Kabbalah and just these other like divine art paths, like on a level that I just haven't encountered. And I've seen a lot of people talk about this stuff, and there's a lot of different ways people weave it together. And listen, I read tarot too. I read astrology too. I do all this stuff too. And I was like, dude, you gotta start a business. Like your shit is super legit. Like you have to like acknowledge that. And even if it seems hard and scary and you don't want to do it, you need to do it. So he did it. And listen, make your mind up at the end of this episode what you want to do, but go check him out. Book a session at arcaneheartstarot.com. I booked my session. I had mine, what was it? Tuesday? Did we do it Tuesday? Holy fucking shit. So earlier in that day, I was like, I'd like to know more about Kabbalah. Like I know it's very rich. I know very cursory things, but I wish I had a teacher, someone who could teach me about this. And then immediately following that, I'm like, I don't need a teacher. I'll just learn it some other way. So then that was that. And if you believe in imagination, when you have those thoughts, you are setting up your future. So the time came for the reading, and I'm like super into exercising and this David Goggins shit. So I'm like, let me just push this back. Like, I don't want to do it, but I didn't. I was like, fuck it, I'll do it. Specifically because I was like, I'm pushing back on it. So I did it. And I told him this afterwards, so he knows this. And holy shit, this reading was fucking incredible. And of course, like readings with me, if I'm the person getting the reading, I won't shut the fuck up. I just talk so much, but it's a way of processing the information people give me and provide and the insight. And just what he was saying alchemically and the cards that came up just made way too much sense. And equally as important, he gave me like a huge introduction to Kabbalah related to the tarot. And we don't get too much into the alchemical inner workings of the tarot. And we're about to head into some tarot heavy episodes with guests. I went over to the guy who designed the alchemical tarot deck. He lives in Saugerties, not too far from me, Robert Place. And so I had him on. So that'll be out next week. So we're going to go deep into this stuff, and we'll get a more of a comprehensive overview at times. But this is really Sean's journey to the mystic arts and embracing that. And I'm super stoked to be able to introduce him to you because he's someone who he holds space. Like he heals in a very So let me tell you this. This is what I've noticed about CryptoSync, and I've never spoken about this before, and it has nothing to do with the cryptocurrency aspect of the server. It at a certain point, the types of people who were attracted to cryptocurrency tended to be men. They tended to be men who were looking for a variety of things. That was just it was a primarily male dominated sphere. That was just my impression. I know there are women who are into it, and I introduce a lot of women to this, and they fucking love it. However, it was primarily men and is primarily men. But since these people came from this podcast, because that's the only way you would have heard about it, from the podcast or my Twitter, it was a certain breed of man. It was a certain breed of male. And at a certain point, it turned into kind of a support group, but like a mystical, I don't know how to describe it, but it became a place where guys were sharing like problems in their lives, things they were going through, feelings, but openly and transparently, but also like very vulnerably. And you know my axiom, vulnerability leads to invulnerability. And I've watched a lot of these people in various degrees of despair, and myself in that server too, work through shit in a very safe way. And that's what Sean really has embodied as much as anything since I've known him. He really is capable of holding space and providing perspective on what you may be experiencing in your life and how to practically implement that. You can tell, like, he's a friend. So that's it for this intro. Go book with him. That's the only ad I'll do. I'll encourage you to join the Synchronicity community as well. There's a link on this episode. And the final thing, tomorrow, October 18th, 2019, whitmalive.com. Well-being in the modern age. That's what WITMA stands for. Guess who came up with that name? So go check that out. I think it starts at 3. I don't think it starts at 3 p.m. It goes to 10 p.m. The real panel discussions kick off about 5 p.m. with Jen and Anna opening it up. And then we got Sean and Cass leading a panel. Then it's me. Then it's Jen leading a panel. No, then it's Jen, and then Michael Phillip from Third Eye. Anyway, it's fucking gonna be awesome. It's gonna be cool. If you're in New York, stop procrastinating. Just get your fucking tickets and come hang out. And then afterwards, okay, so listen to what I'm doing. I'm gonna book a hotel, but there's this app that gives you deals on hotels, like if you book at the last minute. So I'm not booking a place to stay. I'm gonna use this app and imagine like a fucking bomb ass place. And I'm going Lux. Like, fuck it. This is a shitty hotel in New York. I'm fucking going primo. So I'm trying to get like $1,000 a night hotel for like $400. That sounds good to me. So imagine that for me, please. Staying at the Pierre in a luxury suite. That'd be amazing. Although that's way more than $1,000. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. So come to WITMA. Check out Sean. Arcane Hearts Tarot.com. There'll be links to this, of course, everywhere. That's it. Officially loving this new mic. Without further ado, here is Sean Coan. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, man.
So let's talk about a lot of things in this. I mean, we're going to keep it pretty transparently real. You stop me if I impose on your Virgo moon.
No.
But I want to start with just tell me a little bit about who you are, how we know each other. I'm going to do this shit interviewer question where I make you do all the work at the beginning just because I trust you.
Oh no, man, that's cool. You know what? I like an origin story.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I'll tell you an origin story. So I was newly moved to Montana from the Bay Area. I had made a decision that I thought was going to be real good for my career.
Where'd you grow up? Where'd you grow up?
Oh, well, you want to go back that far?
Yeah, man.
I was born in DC.
Oh shit!
And
did I know that?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I forgot it, and then I know.
That's cool. Yeah, so I was born in DC. My parents, they met while they were at the University of Maryland, and they had me. I was born in Georgetown Hospital, and we lived in Odenton, Maryland, which is right by Fort Meade, for about 4 years. And then we moved out to Idaho. My dad he was an agricultural scientist. He's
Mm.
actually an entomologist, but he worked for the USDA. And he made a weird career decision and decided to move us to southern Idaho, right? Which is, it's an agricultural area. Fields everywhere. Culture shock for real for
From
them.
DC, man. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because my dad grew up in DC. He grew up in Silver Springs.
Oh, that's my hometown.
Yeah, right
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's an urban guy. My mom was an urban gal, and we moved out to rural Idaho. And, huge culture shock for them. But I always maintained that East Coast connection. Like we would go back every year
Yeah.
to go see my grandparents, and spend about a month and go do go do summer stuff at Ocean City. So it's kind of bi-coastal in a way. So it was good. Like I got that exposure to old world
Yeah.
America.
Yeah. Two different versions of the country.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so kind of grew up in Idaho, southern Idaho, and northern Idaho. At a later point, we moved up here, and I did my high school in Moscow, Idaho. So after that, I was working. I got out of high school and I was working here. Um, and the people that I was hanging out with, man, they started getting into methamphetamines. Right?
Mm.
Yeah, people started to crank around me, and it was real weird. But I had a buddy who moved on to Eugene, was going to school at the University of Oregon, and I was talking to him, and he was like, "Hey, man, we've got a spot in our house. You should move down here."
Yeah, like get the
So
fuck out. Yeah.
get the fuck out, indeed, man. So we, I moved. I moved to Eugene and went to college at the University of Oregon. Got a geology degree and ended up getting married to my beautiful wife Rose, who was also from Moscow, but a few years younger than me. She was friends with my sister. So yeah, it was fated in a way, I guess.
Yeah.
That we meet each other in Oregon.
Yeah. Yeah.
After
Wow.
that, yeah.
Wow.
So we got together and then moved to Southern Oregon, where I did some work as a land survey technician. But I had this geology degree, and thought that was something I needed to pursue. Ended up interviewing for a job in the Bay Area, moving down there, and we lived in Walnut Creek, California for a while, which is over the Berkeley Hills from Oakland. So it's kind of
Cool. I love,
East Bay.
yeah, I just love Northern California. Like that area of it's just so there's something very magical about it in its own special way. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I did a lot of interesting work there. Kind of working around in industrial areas around the Bay, including even like the South Bay. Had some jobs right around the Googleplex and stuff. You
So you were
But
so yeah, from California. You got married. Where'd you get married?
we got married in the Redwoods, but we
Cool.
were living in Oregon.
Cool though. Very cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. There's this kind of cheesy privately owned Redwoods Park called the Trees of Mystery.
Ooh.
It's out there on the North Coast, and they have this the redwoods. They do this thing. It's kind of like a rhizomatic action where like there's a mother tree, but then her roots start sending up spikes of trees, and they always end up like in this kind of semicircle.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's called a cathedral tree. So we got married
Wow.
this beautiful cathedral tree in the Trees of Mystery.
That's cool. I didn't
Yeah,
That's really fucking it's like Zelda. It's like the forest in Zelda. I'm with it. Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just got attracted by those redwoods that I was clearly psychically picking up on.
Man, that if you've never been, you've got to go and see some of that stuff, man.
Yeah.
Those trees are.
I've seen the redwoods there. I just
Oh, you
haven't.
have?
Yeah,
Oh,
I just
great.
haven't seen that cathedral. Like it, I can envision it, and it's like, yo, I gotta see that in real
I'll send you a
life.
picture sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, yeah, but continue with your origin story, moving through the redwoods, California to Oregon.
yeah, yeah. So, like I said, Oregon, I was feeling a bit displaced professionally, so I looking for different work. We ended up moving to the Bay Area, and things were going pretty well. We had my son Seamus and my daughter Harper there, a couple years apart, and I was kind of interested in doing something else. We'd been to Montana for vacations and jobs and stuff, and thought that seemed really cool.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
moved to Montana,
It's the
and
Gary Shandling dream from the Larry. You ever watch the Larry Sanders Show? Oh
no,
my god, dude, watch the Larry Sanders Show. It's like, oh my god, just yeah, it's HBO. I mean, dude, it's very accessible. 100%. It's like amazing. It's hilarious. His thing is like he's a talk show host. He's like like a Jay Leno, David Letterman, but he's Larry Sanders. He's Gary Shandling, and he always is talking about like moving to Montana. And then like one of the seasons he like does it and fucking hates it. He's like they're fishing and no one's around. He's like this fucking sucks. It's a great show. Watch the show. It's amazing. It's amazing.
yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah.
Anyway, very similar experience.
Yeah, it's the Montana experience, man.
The Montana experience. Yeah, I mean, especially like not being a hunter, not being a fisherman, not being a skier.
Exactly.
It's a weird place to be. But yeah, man, our son, he reacted very poorly to it. It was it was like a really traumatic incident in his life, and he started developing all these behavioral problems, and so like my life was just kind of taking a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and as people do, kind of look for the external agents, and so the job, right, that was what came up, and I was like, fuck. So anyway, I talked to somebody who was going through some similar professional upheaval, and he was like, hey man, I've got all these audiobooks, you got to check this out. And he had a huge collection of New Thought, actually.
Ah.
Yeah, yeah, and
Something just to be clear, I thoroughly discounted like for most of my spiritual and intellectual pursuits through books. Like the people had sent me like Napoleon Hill stuff, and like I don't think I ever really came across Neville Goddard, but like I was like, nah, it just never peaked. Obviously, it didn't. This shit does not hit you until it is meant to hit you, and then when it hits you, for people like me at least, it's like it hits you hard. But yeah, all right. So New Thought guy exposes you to fucking secrets. What's going on?
yeah, he does. And so the two books that I listened to right off the bat were 4 Hour Work Week and are you still there, man?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm still here.
yeah. 4 Hour Work Week and Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah. So planted big seeds, and so I was like, well, now's the time to try and change the way that I think and harness this energy and all this stuff. And anyway, massive flop on my part because I was so destabilized by all this this stuff kind of coming up with my son.
What year is this?
That would be 2011.
Oh yes, right before everyone died. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
of course, of
Yep.
course, of course. That's like that was for a lot of people like peak like disarray, like a lot of like straight, and we didn't know it at the time. It just felt like life, but like clearly a lot of people were going. I don't even know exactly what I was doing in 2011. No, I don't remember, but it was a huge shift. I'm sure. I'm sure it was. I think I moved. My sister and I were living together. We moved into different places. I had one of my very good friends who became like basically like a brother to me. He moved in, but shit was crazy. So okay, continue. I just got sidetracked. Yeah.
Oh no, man, that was it, dude. Shit was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So like I said, I felt like the universe was kind of starting to move, as I was trying to adopt these Napoleon Hill techniques, and um, feeling very inspired by Tim Ferriss. But his book, The 4 Hour Body, came out around that time. His biohacking tome, um, and so I was like, oh wow, this is really interesting, because it's sort of well, you grew up in the 80s and 90s, and so that kind of personal health and wellness was you gotta strive, right? You gotta work real hard, you gotta jog every day and eat low fat food and whatever, and that book
Work
was like,
harder. Work harder. Yeah.
yeah, work harder, and Tim in his way was like, no, it's not it, right?
I
You,
loved the 4-hour work week. I implemented a lot of the strategies immediately and saw positive benefits. But as the macrocosm of Tim Ferriss's experience after he wrote that book, which led to depression and suicidal thoughts, it didn't lead there for me, but it collapsed almost as quickly as I implemented it within a week or so, because I love that he was trying to shortcut people, but he hadn't stabilized what the implications of that 4-hour work week and 4-hour body were, and what I view as kind of the dark side, not in terms of negative, but not looked at side of the human optimization movement, is like, what are you optimizing for? Like, where's the goal? Like, what is the goal? Why do you want the best body? Why do you want all the time in the world? Why do you want all the money in the world? Why do you want all the people to love you in the world? Like, what's the function here?
yeah,
And but that was a big shift back then, right? I mean, that was like 2011, 12, 13, 14 vibes, like, like, let's get fucking right to, like, how do we become the best? That was still the goal.
yeah,
Interesting. Yeah,
yeah,
continue.
yeah. Well, for our body, I started to get real into biohacking stuff, kind of a quantified self, sort of stuff, and ended up finding Dave Asprey. I don't know if are you familiar with the
Mm-mm.
Bulletproof Executive?
No, I know the term bulletproof and how it's used, but no.
Yeah, like bulletproof coffee, the
Yeah,
coffee
yeah.
with the sun butter and MCT oil and stuff. Yeah, yeah. I was listening to him, and um, I should say that I I had been sort of a meditative aspirant for a long time, but didn't really get it. The whole follow your breath instruction didn't really sit very well with me. I couldn't figure it out. Anyway, so he started talking about a biofeedback technology called heart math, and he's like, you can use this, and it will show you how to meditate. And I was like, well, that sounds amazing. I was in counseling at the time, and synchronicities abound. It came up during our counseling session. A great counselor, full on into, hey, let's figure out a way for you to manage your stress right now. Oh
Right,
yeah, you have problems. Okay, that's great. So what are you going to do in the moment?
right.
And she started leading me through this exercise, and um, at the end of it, I was like, hey, I've heard of this stuff, heart math, and she was like, yeah, this is it. And I was,
Awesome.
oh, this is amazing, right? So, I bought the heart math sensor, and had uh, amazing amounts of space open up. Starting to get in touch with my heart. Now, I have to say, prior to this, I'd been sort of under the impression that the body is a vehicle, and we live behind our eyes, and um, I was completely disembodied. Just well, you know, like you said, I'm a Virgo moon, Pisces sun though. So
Jesus,
I'm all
you're all fucked up, man. Yeah, Jesus Christ.
yeah. So I'm right
What's
on
your
the
ascendant?
axis.
What's your ascendant?
Taurus.
All right. Well, at least you have some. I mean, still, it's a lot of Earth. Jeez.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy, man. It's a lot of earth energy, but also, you know, the broad, you know, wide, expansive Piscean
I think I
spirit.
have your chart. I'm gonna pull it up while we're
Yeah,
talking.
yeah,
Keep talking. Keep talking.
yeah, for sure. So I got the sensor, started using the software, and I was able to start feeling my heart. You know, I was able to actually start going into my body, but I had to do it through my eyes, through my cognitive processing. You know, this is like biofeedback. You know, you're getting these real time data on your heart rate variability and stuff, and so
Yeah.
you can go, oh wow, you know, I can manipulate this. That's great. You know, it's one part of it, but then you start to go, oh shit, there's sensations involved, right?
Right.
So yeah, opened up enormously, and I got super stoked. I was like, fuck, I've got to tell the world, you know, evangelical
Classic.
car math guy. Yeah. So
Classic.
I went through their coaching program and got certified as a heart math coach. You know, thinking that was going to be that was going to be the golden ticket.
It's the Holy
Uh,
Grail, of course.
oh yeah, yeah, and definitely it was in a lot of ways. But
Everything
um,
is because you are, right?
indeed, yeah, yeah, that's a good point. You know, you are the vessel for sure.
And the light. And
Yeah,
that's what I've been telling people. Like, just let me know when you figure out you're the light at the end of the tunnel. Like when you like know that's you, you're good.
yeah, yeah, man. So I started implementing this at home. You know, had a lot of success helping out my son. You know, he'd been diagnosed with the autism spectrum disorder, and yeah, so we did a lot of heart math together. I ended up you know, practicing with our daughter Harper too. Um, you know, and it was really good. You know, it was really good. But I was always uncomfortable with selling myself and that kind of thing. So I did I did some coaching pro bono for some people with some profound trauma, and it was awesome. You know, I really, especially one lady, I really helped her make a big shift in her life, and it was super
Rewarding, I'm sure.
rewarding. Yeah, just you know, I felt like something had been fulfilled in me, but you know, at the same time, I had the day job, and um, yeah. So anyway, fast forward to the big year. All right. Well, actually, we'll fast forward.
What's the big year?
2016 is the big year, but we'll fast forward to 2015 because
Okay.
that's when stuff really starts to get good. You know, Rose gets pregnant around the same time as I found a Zen sangha in Helena, um, and you know, I just like to say if anybody's in Helena, you know, look for Flowing Mountains Zen sangha. Those people are amazing, great community in the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition.
Classic. I mean, I've you find lineages in Plum Village and Thich Nhat Hanh is one of those guys. There are no bad stories. There's like not one to be found, and like it. Not that one is better than the other. There are many different paths, and there's really no bad. And even if it seems horrible within certain community, I'm sure we'll get to that. But like, you know, um, Plum Village and Thich Nhat Hanh, man, that dude, the shit. He's still alive, right?
Yeah,
He's
yeah, he
fucking
is.
survived. What a beast! What a beast!
Yeah,
Amazing.
what a beast indeed.
Yeah,
Yeah, he had a pretty profound stroke a few years ago.
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the Ram Dass
I was
thing.
thinking the same thing.
Yeah,
Here's your chart. I knew I would get it. This is how I knew you were from DC too, and I knew I forgot it. Okay. Yep. So you found the Zen Center, 2015. This is.
yeah, yeah, and you know, in uh, in that summer as I was practicing, I also found found chaos magic.
Mm.
to the degree that, you know, the feeling is the secret, right? Is a massive part of chaos magic. You know, like taking things seriously and being a sincere practitioner.
Can I ask you
That,
something about chaos
yeah,
magic? Because
yeah,
I really don't understand. I never formally approached chaos magic. I looked at it as a lens in which people were getting a glimpse of what reality actually was and ways to manipulate it. But what I found, or I didn't immediately find, maybe because I wasn't looking, or I was looking for it and I didn't find it there, was the why. Why is
mm,
this working? What is the operative principle? What are the limits of this? What are the potential pitfalls you hear about a lot? Crowley was like such a, great specter of what's great about magic and what's not, and like, everything that stemmed from like the Golden Dawn and all these other occult traditions that I've subsequently unpacked. Um, but I always felt like, some of the most capable practicing chaos magicians or people who really have been steeped in this stuff for a long time seem to get stuck in this like magical like loophole of like it's you everything. Of course chaos magic works. It's literally, if you just get good at jumping into a feeling and faith and like assuming something's going to happen, it always happens. But I feel like a lot of chaos magicians believe that up into a point, and then they're like, here's the threshold of where this works to. So if I
oh yeah,
believe like I'm going to be president, no way. Like, I'm curious if Yang is a chaos magician. That would be so interesting. Trump
yeah,
is, he doesn't know it, but he is in his own way. He believes and feels what his world, and then essentially imposes it on everyone else who's like, wait, no, what's happening? And they're like, oh shit, how did he do that again? Like, I don't know. It's just I don't know. It's a very interesting phenomenon. Okay, sorry to
oh yeah.
interject
Oh
about
no,
chaos
no, no,
magic. Yeah.
definitely. You know, and I certainly want to get to Trump. But, you know, I wasn't. I wasn't necessarily taken with the practice of chaos magic, but the idea that the sincerity was
Mm.
the key. That really rang true to me, and I was like, okay, cool. You know, because like, you know, growing up in America, we kind of have Christianity, you know, and the Judeo-Christian tradition as sort of like the the model for what spirituality is, you know. And so when I started practicing with these guys, I have to say, you know, had a real distaste for religion, right? Because it's got this external force, religion, right? Not
Isn't it?
spiritual.
Yeah, and isn't it fun when I keep yakking about the Bible all the time now, just to fuck people up?
Oh yeah,
Because yeah, it's none of it's literal.
yeah,
People take it literally and teach it literally, and they fuck everyone up. It's it's not even a travesty. It's kind of like an amazing story and script. It's like,
hmm
let's take this actually best possible tool that really is a blueprint for waking up and like understanding the map of this world, especially. But let's fucking read it literally and teach it literally to people. And where clearly there's like discrepancies within like the first 10 pages. It's like, what the fuck? This shit doesn't add up logically.
right.
And like, let's convince people this is what's going on and then mediate it. And then it fucks people up. And then it's a shame. And then you have to have jackasses like me trying to talk about the Bible all the time. But it is, it's a shame that the way it was filtered down for the past, it's not even a shame. Like I said, it's part of a fun story, but it does have this it does promote and engender this reaction in people where it's like, yo, fuck out of here with that noise. Like, not into it. All right. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that was the attitude that you know I was bringing into this saga. You know, I was like, oh, what is this with the bells and the bowing and you know all this stuff
The
and
ritual, the ritual of it. Yeah.
the ritual of it. Yeah, and I was like, I was kind of freaked out. You know, like, oh shit, do I have to subscribe to something here? Like, what's the deal? You know, but you know, found this sincerity piece, and I was like, well, fuck it. I'm going to be sincere about this. And, when I go in, I'm going to believe that this is changing my state of mind. And
Lo and behold.
there you go. Lo and behold. Indeed. Yeah. I found an amazing amount of internal peace from that. I mean, I, I shouldn't say peace. That's not necessarily what was going on. Equanimity.
Equanimity is good, but I mean, equanimity isn't that far off from peace. Peace is maybe like the added dimension of like the warmness of the heart. Equanimity can just be the stability of mind and like, like, oh, no matter what happens emotionally or otherwise, like I'm good. The peace is like, okay, not only am I good, but like I'm feeling at home everywhere I am all the time. I guess that is a distinction. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, and that's an important one because I don't want to give people the impression that things had evened out for me. I mean, stuff was still totally totally insane. Um, but Rose was pregnant. We found out it was twins, which is that's a whole nother deal. Very very interesting turn of events there. That had us kind of on the road driving to the bigger city, Missoula, to go see specialists and all this stuff. And so 2016 rolls around, January 23rd. I'd eaten some edibles and Rose went into labor, and
Oh, yeah. It's always like that. It's always like
yeah,
that, right?
yeah, it's
Did you
always like
kind of
that.
know it before, like you had taken them? Had you had the thought that like one time I'm going to take edibles and she's going to get pregnant, or did it just come out of the blue?
Oh man, well here's she woke up and she was like, Sean, I think today's the day. And I was like, oh.
Oh, yeah.
And then like in the afternoon, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna eat this sucker. and then that evening, her water broke, and we went and we had the twins. Once again, man, massive disruption for my boy Seamus, and he ended up having a real bad turn, and we had to take him to psychiatric hospital, and so like this is meteor number one, meteor number two, right? Just smashing the gates open, and then oh my God, he had another trip to the hospital later that year in the summer, and we were like, oh shit, this has got to be it, right? This has been like, we've got these little babies, we've got this boy who's having these emotional problems. This has got to be the end of it. Now, I don't want to be like too serious, but what ends up happening is that this is a very significant day for me, October 10th, actually, because it was
Ah,
kind of the last day of somewhat normalcy because my sister died
wow.
overnight on the 11th in
Wow.
2016. Yeah,
Wow.
of a drug overdose.
Wow.
Yeah, opioids.
Shit.
Yeah,
How
she'd
old was
struggled.
she?
Oh man, you put me on the spot here, dude. She was 32,
Uh,
and she'd had a lot of struggles with addiction, but had really turned her life around, actually, and had been clean, and ended up wanting to have one more party, and man, that didn't work out too well.
yeah.
So there it was, dude. Bam, October 11th, 2016. We're on the road coming here, to Idaho, and had had her funeral and stuff. But uh, I had this practice, and that was the lifesaver. The practice, the family, the twins. I mean, they held us all together. Just passing around babies, and um, you know, we were dealing with it, and
Yeah.
then the election.
Yeah. I mean, you have Saturn in Leo in your fourth house, which is the house of home and family. And Saturn is opposing your Mars in your yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the Saturn is the teacher of lessons, right? He's the one who, like most people, when they see him somewhere doing something, if there's red lines in an astrology chart, they're like, "Oh no," and but having kind of gone. Well, and Jupiter probably was right there too. Gone through this, like, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Hopefully, I mean, you still have transits and stuff. All right, continue. I'm just saying, it's like I'm looking at your chart I'm like, where's Saturn? I'm like, where's the teacher of karma and like lessons? Like, where is it? Oh, it's in your home and family. It's like, no shit. Oh, it's in Leo, a fire sign. It's like fixed. Shit is movement, fucking energy.
Yeah.
I pulled cards for you. We'll go over them after your origin story. I'm thank you for being so honest and transparent with this shit, man.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's important. I don't want to paint like a rosy picture.
Yeah.
I want to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, and then the election was just the next month, and it was like, holy fuck, what has happened? The whole world is ending.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God. And so, I got sort of obsessed, as I think a lot of people did. Especially maybe those of us with progressive sympathies. Of like, oh, the rise of the right. Oh my God, the alt right, the white supremacists, and I was buried in Twitter and and Reddit, and just like kind of ruining my sanity.
Yeah.
Um, as I'm trying to deal with all this, this crazy shit going on. Having these new babies, have my sister dead,
Yeah.
have my son unstable, and I went to a retreat with the sangha, and I ended up taking the 5 mindfulness trainings transmission. Um, which I had a lot of problems with some of the verbiage. Um, I'm trying to remember which mindfulness training it was, but there was one, Thich Nhat Hanh had like, rewritten the precepts for the modern age. And this one was like, you got to abandon websites and TV and stuff that's not, it's not feeding you. And I was like, well, fuck that. I felt rebellious. And I was like, well, because I'm rebelling against this, it must be important.
Mm.
So I took the transmission. And when I got home, dude, erased Reddit, got off Twitter, and all of a sudden was just, like free of the political malaise of the time. Um, and it was, once again, it was that sincerity, man. The feeling is the secret. It was a beautiful ceremony. Don't want to cry yet, but I was there, like, with all these people. I'm prostrating, and like the sun is beaming into
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
windows overlooking Flathead Lake up by Glacier, which is really one of the most beautiful places in the whole world. Glacier
Cool.
Park in Montana, and yeah, it just another shift. And that was great, man. That was great, but the time had come to move on. My mom lived here in North Idaho, still in the same town. She and Jenny, always wanted to live near each other, and Rose and I and our family, we were just traveling around doing whatever. But
Yeah.
we moved back to the area to help out my mom and all that stuff. So here we are, Eastern Washington, um, and I'm without a sangha, but with
Well,
some,
not in a physical
not in a
location.
physical way, right? But definitely, or not in a mental way, but definitely physically, I'm separated from these people. And I ended up finding somatic meditation, um, in the I'll just go ahead and be super forthright with this. But I practiced in the Dharma Ocean Foundation, which is, if anybody doesn't know, Reggie Ray was a student of Chogyam Trungpa, who for years was in Shambhala International. He was a real senior student, and he ended up having a mystical experience, where he was kind of delivered a death sentence of some kind of cancer that was going to kill him within a couple months. And he had Trump that came to him and was like, "Hey, man," and he decided to go his own way, and the doctor was like, "Oh, I never make these kind of mistakes, but yeah, apparently you're not sick."
No, my bad, dude. The thing that's gonna
Yeah,
kill you right now is all good. That's the power of, that's like the blessing and curse of a strong imagination. And that's what, I mean, I know a lot of Trungpa disciples personally. Um, and much like everything else in life, there's a spectrum of people who
yeah,
studied with him. There's a
yeah,
wide spectrum of people. Some of them I would give my kids to. You know what I mean? Like you're good enough. You can take care of my children. Some of them, I'd be like, you know what? Like I'm good. I'm good. I'm good on that. I'm gonna maybe like not do that, but like maybe like let's hang out and have some fun talks. So I mean, it's interesting that like he really was, and I mean Trungpa. I don't know if this is like publicly come to light yet, but like there was trauma, not just from the sense that he had to escape and go over like mountains to escape his homeland, but like the monastery lifestyle and the things that have emerged in the Catholic priesthood, that's not just the only place it happens. Like that
yeah,
when you force people to be together and self-flagellate and restrain themselves from pursuing sexual desires, yeah, that shit's gonna pop out. Like it's gonna
yeah.
pop out, and in ways that like probably society at this point is gonna be like, that's not okay to do, so don't do that. So it those reverberations really permeate everything. And I think part of this guru relationship that I'm understanding more and more of, and Milarepa, who I have behind me now, is always a reminder of this, because like Milarepa is the coolest, right? He took all of the song,
Yeah.
all the dharma, and then he turned it into song form, and he instantly would just go from place to place, like casting spells, being like, yo, here's the truth of things, boom, here you go. And they're like, we love you. And they're like, no, like you don't love me, it's you, boom. So he's the coolest. But every verse he sang, he would start every song he sang, he'd be like, thank you, Marpa, I love you, Marpa, you're the best, Marpa. And Marpa was his guru, who was a dick to him. He was Saturn basically. He was just like shitting on him relentlessly, but to teach him that it was him, and that like he had to purify and transcend these things until he understood, because he had a propensity to misuse them in the past. That's the allegory of Milarepa and Marpa. But um I'm feeling like the guru relationship is also flipping, not just in terms of the elimination of, but also the healing retroactively. Like a lot of Chogyam's disciples, whether they were physically disciples or students of the lineage, they have to go back and help their teacher too. Like that's part of this process. So yeah. Continue with the Dharma Ocean stuff.
Oh yeah, man. So once again, I decided I was going to practice very sincerely, and it was amazing, right? I mean, this kind of spark that I'd found, finding my heart, just radiated out, you know, as I laid down the neuronal work, in my body, to really start to tap into the hidden wisdom of
Yeah.
the unconscious, and start to resolve that kind of stored trauma and karma. Um, the Dharma Ocean works not only based on Trungpa, it's also based a lot on Peter Levine, who developed somatic experiencing therapy.
Mm.
And his hypothesis was that trauma is stored in the body as tension. Because as people with a regulator, when things come up and we're afraid, we'll tense down and try to hold it all together, and it actually creates a kind of knot in your body, right? I know you've
Yeah.
talked a lot about Sarno and the you know healing your back, right? With
Yeah, my neck shit, my unconscious rage. He came from like, what convinced me was that I was so anti-Freud and his whole shit is Freudian, and it was working, and I'm like, oh. Like shit. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. I guess he was on to something. Yeah, no, that's accurate. I've been listening to this David Goggins book, which is both really great and really challenging for me to listen to because he's like, you need to be a bully to yourself. Like sometimes bullies are right. Like they and like to hear the wisdom in what he's saying is actually like a really really great exercise for someone who considers themselves like because he's like the world is too soft, like you have to like be able to take what he's saying but also like he is really giving you a very clear path towards recognizing that like you do transcend any experience and it's not like you're mean for being mean sake. It's kind of this like it's like you know what it is, it's like the emperor card, you
Yeah,
know, it's like no one I feel like a lot of people in this age don't love seeing the emperor because it's like this paternal wisdom and stuff but like you know what, like sometimes you do. Your dad, I have to like and like I don't want to say yelling like unhinged screaming, that's not what I'm talking about, but like sometimes I have to yell at Eli because he's a toddler and he's doing some wild shit and like
oh yeah.
sometimes he reacts poorly and like the first 300, 400, 500, 1,000 times, I was like, maybe felt bad. And then I'm like, no, I don't feel bad. You're about to like stick a fork in a fucking electric socket. Like, I needed to yell at your ass. Like, what do you mean? I want to get, what are you fucking crazy? Yeah. All right. Back to the somatic stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so back to the somatic stuff. Anyway, it really opened up my practice. Once again, like I said, I started out totally intellectually, Virgo moon, right? Everything's coming out of my mind, and then I learned, oh hey, the body's there, and I started feeling that, and yeah, man, shit started getting even better,
Yeah. Yeah. You're
even
putting the
better, even
pieces
better.
together. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I went through their they call it the Foundation Jana because Hinayana is now considered sort of improper word, but the Tibetan path, they talk about the three different vehicles, right? The personal vehicle, which is the Hinayana, the foundational vehicle, which is getting your shit straight, and the first turning of the wheel of Dharma. Um, learning about how to dissect your sensory inputs and sort of see the fluidity of who you are, right?
Hmm.
um, and then natural extension, I moved on to the Mahayana, which was great for me because it was kind of a return to the heart. The Mahayana is all about the heart meditations, the metta and the bodhicitta. um, yeah, amazing, amazing,
What about the
amazing.
Vajrayana? Let's get to the fucking weirded out fucking wisdom scientists of Tibet.
Yeah,
Which is
the
Vedic,
cosmic vehicle.
which is
Yeah,
Vedic, like in Vedic. And I mean, the cool thing about Buddhism, I don't know how familiar people are with the etymology of all this stuff, which is more of like a whimsical uh pursuit for me at this point rather than like trying to be like where did it all come from because it's like I don't know, it's
right.
irrelevant. But it is interesting that, you know, at least in the Tibetan tradition, you know, Milarepa was the first fully Tibetan yogi. Marpa learned and he was trained. I mean, Marpa was Tibetan, but he went to India like a lot of the other Tibetan. I mean, Tibetan people think of Tibetan Buddhism, they think of like shit's been around for thousands. It's been around for like 800 years. It's like not
Yeah,
that old. It's like
yeah,
pretty new. So like you can trace back these lineages to like, oh, they used to go to India to study with like so and so who was a yogi. So Milarepa was the first Tibetan born and trained and raised in Tibet. So it's like I only bring that up because we're going through the vehicle. It's like, you know, the Tibetan path, which is what a lot of people, I think, because of the Dalai Lama, think of as
mhm,
Buddhism now, is really new. Like
yeah,
really new. Like people don't even, it's like way newer than Christianity. Like it's interesting. It's very interesting stuff.
yeah. Well, um, so the Vajrayana is Buddhist tantra, right? For people who don't necessarily know, um, and the tantric style of practice is to erase the boundary between the sacred and the mundane.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a lineage of people who had families and also people who did weird stuff like live in, in the cremation grounds and, eat human flesh and meditate on rotting corpses and
Hey man, don't knock it till you try
right.
it.
So I mean, a lot of that, trying to erase the fear and erase the boundaries, and and we'll get to this a little bit later, but I think that in the Western tradition, the alchemical path is kind of the Western tantra
It's
in a
the
way.
it's yeah, it's the left-hand path in the Vedic tradition. It's definitely, I mean, alchemy I mean, here's the truth. I think it's all the blueprint for what most of us have signed up for in this day and age. If
Yeah.
you incarnated in a time which doesn't exist, but let's say it does, in a time and place where you have not just psychic access to like all the Akashic records and everything, but like physical access and digital access that you can find whatever you need to find on a whim in your hand, chances are you did that for a reason. And chances are you did that because you've subscribed to, especially if you're listening to this podcast, you've subscribed to the left hand path. You are a Vajra yogini or yogi. Like you're going into the world. You are interested in alchemy. You are interested in astrology and divination, because what all those paths eventually lead to is like there is quite literally no difference. There's quite literally no difference between what one considers sacred and mundane.
Hmm.
And the easiest way that I've found to realize and experience that is just know that you actually have quite a bit of control over this lucid dream reality we're in here. And by proving that to yourself, questions begin to dispel themselves rather than trouble the mind, the Virgo moon's inner conflict and feeling. Because, like, honestly, like, it's like you just keep proving, you're like, holy shit, what? Like, oh my God. And,
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't mean that everything is always smooth, although I do think we're moving into Smoothville for people who want to jump on Smoothville. It doesn't mean like nothing quote unquote bad or uncomfortable ever happens, but it means that we have all of the tools and resources to transcend them at the rate we decide to. Like it's not, we're not fated is basically is what I'm saying in terms of like what we experience. We're fated to wake up to who we are. That's the only thing that I know is destined. The means and the rate in which we do that is totally up to us. It's totally up to us as individuals to experience that. Okay, again, got sidetracked.
Oh, not at all, man. That's exactly the point, right? The kind of culmination of the three different vehicles of Tibetan Buddhism, right, is either the Dzogchen or the Mahamudra, which is the nature of mind, right? That comes back to that it's all coming from inside. You know.
Everywhere you go, there's always some imaginal narrative and system that says that. Some can say call it Father. Neville Goddard called it Father. There was the Holy Trinity. It's all the same. They're talking about the same thing. I just find the quickest vehicle is to quite literally just go up and realize that, and realize it doesn't mean death. It doesn't mean obliteration. I think that's a huge existential fear that a lot of people have about enlightenment or the awakening process, is like you're gonna just like you're not gonna be here anymore, like you die. Like I've had psychedelic trips that are like that, like whoa, I'm figuring it out, and like that's just a part of you dying. Like you're still
Yeah.
here. It's the whole function of being here is to wake up to that. So you think you're just gonna like evaporate as soon as you realize it? No, it would suck. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's get into that a little bit, because I think that something that I feel needs to be addressed. Because I've chosen this kind of Buddhist direction. Is the question of ego and stuff, and how we in the West have kind of turned that into a neurosis of its own. Like what is ego? Why don't
Just
I
the
need to
question of it.
hate this,
What do you
or
do with
yeah,
it? Yeah,
what
like
do you
that's
do
a
with it?
neurosis now, of course. So
Yeah, yeah, right.
thanks,
And
Freud.
Well, and as Mitch Horowitz and you have pointed out, it gets in the way for people because they kind of self-flagellate and think that it's something that needs to be destroyed. But what I'd like to just point out to everybody, um, who's read Buddhist philosophy or read Vedic philosophy, these things come out of practice. The truth is, I mean, what the Buddha was pointing to is that there is a fluidity, right, within us that we, like me, I am not concrete. And so when you get into deep practice, you see that, yeah, it's shifting around, and that there's all kinds of inputs and all this stuff, you know, and that part of you that wants to take it all and assimilate it, that's good. But that part also remembers the past and is, concerned with the future
Yeah.
and feels like it's solid. But when you can slow it down moment by moment, then you
It's not.
realize, no, it's not solid. We are like an ever flowing river, just emanating out of our body mind.
So here's where I think Westerners misinterpret the truth of that. I think that's something that becomes relatively apparent to anyone who's taken a high dose of any psychedelic,
Hmm.
because it's just like, oh my God, there's no real me. Like Noah is just a concept, clearly just a concept. Like that, to me, to latch on to anything, I think from my own personal experience and seeing how other people uh, follow that realization, that fluidity, right? The Hinayana, or the kind of that realization is the Buddha is you. The Buddha is an allegory of you saying, "Hey, I'm not doing anything special. I'm just awake." But the Buddha, we know about him because he was the Buddha. He branded himself in this allegory. The person who wrote and said this is a metaphor for someone waking up branded someone. There was Siddhartha. Hesed did it even more explicitly. We need to do that for ourselves too. So there is
Hmm.
this to deny. This is kind of like some of the Socratic. I think Socrates, the way he was at least explained by Plato, was one who kind of like denied the body. Also, in a similar way, this is kind of a Piscean thing too. I've noticed is to like, oh, well, the body is just an afterthought. This world is kind of like an illusory thing. The mind is the only thing that's creating everything. So I don't need to pay attention to the body. It's a failure to integrate that truth with the fact that we're fucking here, right? Like we have physical form. So in the same way that this Hinayana like proves that there's a fluidity of mind and just sense of self, sure, but we've stabilized it. And we've stabilized it for a very specific purpose. And that purpose, as far as I can tell, the only purpose is to wake up to the ultimate nature of this unity consciousness, what in Tibetan Buddhism um, is the merging of emptiness and bliss, right? That is the culmination of what they refer to as perceiving the clear light of enlightenment accurately and knowing yourself to be it, right? And
Yeah.
how the manifestations of that happen. Um, that's the whole point. Outside of that, man, it's all fucking all bets are off. That's
Yeah.
the only thing that's important. And I think identifying the fluidity is the necessary first step to being able to build the stability of self and recognize the value of building the sense of self and also being willing to completely destroy it. Like that's the thing. You want a strong enough, like what I love about this David Goggins shit is like he's really teaching people how to build this incredibly tough, persistent, fulfilled sense of self. But you also, he says can't hurt me. I when I hear that, I say no. You want to be able to be hurt, like also be able to open up that exterior, get stabbed in the heart, so you can feel it, because that allows you to do two things. One, if you can do it, you really are tough. If you have the strength to be hurt, holy shit, you're fucking even stronger than someone who can't be. You're like Wolverine strong. Like you can actually be hurt. He just keeps growing back. So if you can do that, you also get the power of being able to show other people how to transcend that pain. If there's someone who just never is hurt and maybe they have the blueprint, but you can't get to the point where you can follow the blueprint, that's not as helpful as someone being like, yo, let me come down to like the depths of despair with you. Cause I know what that's like. I'm just going to dip my toes in. I'm not living there like you, but I'm going to come in all right, here you go. Pull you out. All right, got it. Here's the thing. Here's how you do it. You can pull yourself out now. That to me is a very powerful aspect of being. And one of the reasons we incarnate is to feel that depth of experience once we open up to it, which is really a great synthesis of all this heart math and Buddhist pursuits. Now, like I said, this diminishing of ego and desire, I've already seeing another kind of, I don't see it, but I see ripples of it because I don't really believe in it. But the people have this weird aversion to desire again. Like it's like,
Yeah.
whoa, like we shouldn't, like it's bad, like we don't want this. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm seeing this out in the world because there's probably some aspect of me that wants to like pressure test this. I am so full on sold as the vehicle of realizing who you are the quickest way is your desires. Like there's legitimately, Andrea's going to call. Hold on. I got to take this call for 1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm recording a podcast. I can't talk. See, every time someone a woman in my family calls me, it's my wife, my mom, my aunt, it's always something. So anyway, but yeah, I forgot what I was saying.
Oh, well, we were talking about desire.
Oh yeah, the best.
Yeah, yeah. We know there's the whole thing about clinging and fulfillment and
Yes.
attachment and this kind of thing. Once again, misinterpretation because this stuff comes from practice. I think there's that people get fucked up when they start looking at a practice and philosophy that comes out of it and thinking that the philosophy is what makes the practice. No, no, no. It's observation. What they were really getting at is that there is a like an urge to move, right? You are fluid. Also, you are dissatisfied, right? Otherwise, nothing ever gets done. Otherwise you just sit there in a puddle of your piss and shit on your cushion,
See this.
and slowly rot, and you see this with asceticism.
And
People putting
I
their
think that's a
arms up and
I have to interject and say I think that's a mistranslation. This idea of
yeah,
dissatisfaction is not the best vehicle for people who can't handle that word as a movement starter rather than
yeah,
a state of mind where it's bad or judgmental or negative, right?
absolutely,
Like the Dalai
yeah,
Lama didn't understand when someone was like, "Hey, like what do the Tibetan Buddhists say about self-hatred?" He's like,
yeah,
"What?" He's like, "What?" And they had to explain to him that people in the West like hate themselves. He's like, "Whoa, wait a second, what?" So like the thing is that dissatisfied for most people, the way I talk about dissatisfaction is now there's that tension point. There's that thing
mhm,
you want something, you don't have it. That's the only thing that I refer to as dissatisfied. And if you know how to pursue it and know that it's worthy of pursuit, if you actually like, you don't have to contemplate forever, but you practice. Here's the thing that always fucked me up with the meditation and other vehicles that were working. Um, A is I'm the type of person where you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be enlightened for me to follow you. However, if I can find people who throughout history were like mystics and you just look at them and saw what they are like, oh, that person, like they know what they were living it. That means there are people like that. So if you're teaching something and you're not the living embodiment of what you're teaching in every way, it's not that I think you're bullshit. I used to think you were bullshit. That was stupid and that was judgmental and was holding me back. I don't think you're bullshit. But what it shows me is like there must be something you're still looking for as well. And what that
yeah,
thing is always something inside of you. So here's what I've learned with practice. Here's what I've learned. I've turned my entire life into my practice. I've turned my waking, like people in like the yogas of Naropa, they'll be like, hey, like you get into this dream state and then you're in the lucid dream state and that's where you start working through all your karma. This is the fucking lucid dream. This is the fucking lucid dream. This is the Bardo state. I don't mean this. I don't even mean this like, yes, this is Earth and there are other Bardo states. What I'm saying is like, this is where you work through this shit. This is the place where you actually have the ability to malleably change things. That's why they refer to it as a precious human birth. It's so
yeah,
rare in their minds. And it's not that rare, actually. Here's the truth. They're doing that to say, like, hey, take advantage of it. Wake up, wake up. It's not
Yeah.
that rare. Here's the truth. You keep doing this shit over and over and over and over and over and over as you in this life. It's just like a little bit off dimensionally. It's like the same fucking thing until you wake up to this reality of what's going on. And then it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, this is incredible. Now I get why one would put themselves through these infinite loop of suffering and dissatisfaction, because like they now have the tool to wake up to how to not be dissatisfied. That
Yeah.
to me is what's going on right now. And I really do believe, just by virtue of me having a podcast and the ability to like speak to people, this is the proof to me that this is actually what's going on. Because a lot of people are tuning into this shit and they wouldn't have incarnated and been able to hear that this isn't just like crazy talk if it wasn't what was going on here. And I think that's pretty miraculous. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So there's so many problems with semantics, right? The words that we choose are
But it
often
fucks
the
people
problem.
up in the syntax, because what it
Yeah.
does, you know what semantics do? They carry with them the resonant tone of what the person is feeling as they're saying them. So if I say fuck, someone can know that I don't say fuck like I want to fucking kill that guy. It's different. It's like a loving, like, it doesn't matter. Some people are like, yo, you say fuck too much. Why are you saying it so much on, like, when you're talking about this? I'm like, I don't know. I like it. It's fun. It's a good word. It's like good phonetically. It's good. The resonant intention of it is totally fine. But whereas another person says it, it's just like bad. It's bad, bad, bad. So I think that's really what most people, I just feel like the word dissatisfied carries with it a resonant tone because we've imaginally given it that. Same thing with like ego and attachment, aversion, grasping. They're like these things
Mhm.
we try to move away from. And like the whole point of them is so you don't move towards or away, not in like some like, let me do nothing kind of way, but just like, you know how to handle shit when it comes towards you. You don't freak out. You're taking this like equanimity, like everything is great. And I think the key mechanism here is that you can prove to yourself that this world is a dream and that it's not just like conceptually a dream. And that to me is you wake up to that to the degree it makes sense. You know what I mean?
Indeed. Indeed. Well, I mean, if there are any doubters in the power of the imagination, I'm on Synchronicity. So
Yeah, there you go. You did
it's
it.
funny, it works.
Let's shift to tarot, because we could talk, I'm
Yes.
pretty sure, for about endless hours. And we
Endless.
will. We're gonna have to do this YouTube stuff. Watch how I get it set up. It's so amazing. Uh Tarot, man. You got me tuned into this alchemical tarot. You know about decans. You know about shit that I didn't know about. You put me onto Fortune's Wheelhouse, this podcast. I got to get them on. I got to go visit them. Um, how did you get into tarot and all of the alchemical? Like, what sparked your interest? And then we're going to talk about what you're doing, which I love.
What sparked my interest? You know, I guess I've always been interested in the occult. As a kid, I was kind of an intuitive magician. I mean, I remember. I'm thinking specifically of one thing. My mom had a daycare center, and like there's this there's this old garage in there, and like I was like 7 or something like that, and I took a couple other 7-year-olds into this garage, and we were like started doing like a seance, just kind of impromptu. Like I was making up some chanting, and fucking beams of light are coming into the whole thing. So I mean, I kind of I had this.
You know, your Neptune is in your 8th house in Sagittarius. Do you know what that means? Is that just
No,
gibberish to
man.
you? All right. So I could hold the thought with your seance, and it just makes sense. So Neptune is your unconscious. It's the mystic arts. It's kind of the occult. It's witchcraft. Your 8th house is ruled by Scorpio. It's reincarnation. It's kind of all that stuff. That's cyclical past stuff. And Sagittarius, as you know, is just like, it's just straight up fire expansion, like movement, travel, philosophy. So the fact that your Neptune is there in your 8th house with Sagittarius is just like, it's a very good explanation from why at a very young age you would have been attuned to this type of shit. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, culturally though, very dicey back in the 80s. I mean,
Oh yeah.
as you remember the Satanic Panic, and there was a huge, kind of intellectual witch hunt, I think, for the occult, and onward into the 90s. But and once again, the culture is largely Judeo-Christian, and so that's frowned upon, at least in my childhood, and so I pushed it away. But as a grown man, right, I'm doing this Buddhist path, and I found the chaos magic ideal of sincerity. Well, I wanted to explore the Western tradition a little bit more, so I started to hang out in some occult Discord servers, and there was something about the cards, that just it called to me. I downloaded an app and started doing digital readings for myself, and went through all those kind of early tarot pitfalls with getting the scary looking cards, and
Oh no.
oh no, the Tower, the Ten of Swords, oh fuck. um, but yeah, so I started learning the tarot this way, and I have to say the app that I use is hilarious. I mean, it's like probably designed around that 2010, 2011,
I'm pretty sure
early
I had this.
iOS.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had the same app, and I honestly had it back in like 2008 or some shit, and I don't think they've changed. I mean, I have way better apps now for it, but like I'm very it was like purpley, and like I just kind of remember this app being like so silly, but it worked.
Oh, it is silly, but it worked. And I mean, that was a great intro, right? Because the deck art is terrible. I mean, that's not true. There's several decks, but there's a lot of really bad decks in there. So I got a taste for the way that different cards looked, and the way that the different artists interpreted um, the symbolism, and all that kind of stuff. And my my brother-in-law, um, he ended up getting me the alchemical tarot. I heard Bob Place on the Rune Soup podcast with Gordon White, and Gordon said it was his favorite deck. And I was like, well, shit, man, if Gordon likes it, I'm going to check this out, And I looked at the cards on the internet and asked for it for my birthday, and um, so yeah, Jordan, shout out, man. He got me the alchemical tarot, and I started reading for him and reading for myself, pulling cards all the time. Um, and then at some point, I just had a tingle, and I started offering on these occult servers, for card reading, and their reactions, Noah, were really what empowered me. That these people were like, "Oh shit, dude, this guy is fucking on," you know, and
Yeah.
and like it's not like I'm doing spreads for housewives. These are legit practitioners working with all kinds of magical systems. And they were impressed with me, and I was like, "Fuck,
That's what happened
awesome."
with me. And I didn't know any of this stuff. I just like know that like what you were posting in the CryptoSync server, and just like I was like, yeah, because like the Kabbalah stuff too. Like I didn't know any of like everything I learn about feels like remembering, if I'm being honest, which is why I think I
Mhm.
can very quickly like, I know I have friends. I don't know. I'm sure there are people who are in my circles who are like, Noah didn't know shit about tarot. Now he's charging money for tarot. Who the fuck does he think he is? All I can say is I didn't understand tarot. I didn't get it at all. I used it. I knew there was a power there. Same thing with astrology. But once I fucking popped that key open, holy shit, did I start. And it was like, it's a thirst and it's a hunger. I listen to the stuff about this. I read stuff about it. It's like,
Yeah.
it just comes pouring in. And when it starts to make sense and you get it, it's like, whoa. And it's like, I just know from my quick deep dive into it, I immediately, and the shit like, dude, Fortune's Wheelhouse, the Water Trio, like all this stuff, like those people are so fun and smart, and like amazing about this, and they tie so many things together. I don't even know if, like, honestly, my sense is like they kind of know what they're doing, but I don't even think they really realize like the power of what they're doing in terms of like tying together alchemy, mysticism, um, history, astrology, astronomy, tarot. It's fucking nuts. It's so cool. But
Yeah.
you also do that in like these condensed readings. And yeah, man, explain your particular take on tarot and just kind of how this unfolded for you.
My particular take on tarot, I see the cards as a reflection of the spiritual journey, more so than fortune telling. you know um I say like you get death or something like that, which means a big change. That doesn't necessarily mean that stuff in your life is going to fall apart. I mean, it certainly could, and is definitely evident, but it it's more about what happens inside. How do we rectify our internal struggle. um like, I'm gonna leave it there. I like concise. How do we rectify our internal struggle? The tarot lays it out pretty well.
Or pointing out where it is potentially is, I mean, so I spoke to Robert Place, who designed the alchemical tarot. I didn't ask him any of the questions at all. And I also had to use the XY because he's like, I'm not holding that. He didn't say it, but it was like, yeah, you got to hold the mic. He's like, we got to hold them. I'm like, no, we don't. So I just laid him in front of us and used the XY. So I haven't even listened to the quality yet, but he was very interesting. And he said something to me because he has so many cool decks that he has designed. I had no idea. I'm like relatively like I'm relatively schmucky when I interview people. Like I get what they've created in my hand. So I did this with Mitch. Like I listened to the Miracle Club before I had him, which was amazing. And I've used this alchemical deck now for at least a few weeks before I went and saw Robert. And but like I didn't know shit about him really. And so I was like finding all of this stuff out, and he's like showing me all these like antique decks and cards he has and like telling me the history. And he's really as much of a historian
Hmm.
about tarot than anything else, and I didn't know that. So I'm here like I'm like, time doesn't exist. And like he's like I don't know, man. And he's like, it was a practically pretty good conversation. But we were talking, I saw one of his things and I was like, there's a bird. I'm like, people should know that like the bird, what the bird, and he's like, yeah, but sometimes it's just a bird. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not. You know what I mean? And I do
Yeah.
know that it's just a bird in life, but it also, I do believe the reason these cards work, and he broke it down historically, because they're not what we thought. Most people imbue this like ancient mystical wisdom in them, and it's not. And
Mhm.
like alchemical tarot proves that, because he came up with this shit in like the 80s in the 90s. So it's not like this ancient thing, and he knew the history of this stuff. So yeah, the tarot is just, it's fascinating to me. My only thing I've realized about it is it's always the querent. It's the cards are always the querent, like anything
Yeah.
else in this world. And we have this ability to hone in on them and dice them and make them make sense for people. And that's what I love about what you do, because you do use these decans and you do use the alchemy. So like, walk me through your process as you're giving a spread in terms of like, how do you, like, are you noticing intuition, impressions? Are you referencing? Like, there's infinite ways to do this stuff, as I'm sure you know. But like, what's your process for like pulling cards? And you don't use reversals. Bob doesn't use reversals either. You don't,
Yeah.
right? Because yeah,
No reversals for me.
right, right,
Yeah.
right, right. So like, what's your process like?
My process. You know, I guess if we're talking about how in practice I do it, usually I take a moment and do a bit of personal banishing. I have a visualization that I do where I breathe up from the center of the earth, and there's a lotus in my heart, and project it out in front of me. This may sound familiar to anybody who knows the lesser ritual of the pentagram, but I project out in front of me a yellow lotus for air, I'm always facing east. To the south, I project out a red. Behind me, blue, and to my left, to the north, a green. And then I imagine like just this huge blast of air, and I see the clouds coming out, in front of me, and then just a sea of fire to my right, and like a endless ocean to my back, and like a landslide, it's spreading out forever. And at that point I know that my shit's cleared out, right? And then I use my heart math and my bodhicitta training, where I breathe into my heart and sort of picture the querent, and try to occupy their space. And I draw the cards rapidly, and then sit there and, in a very Piscean way, kind of go, okay, intuitively, what does this mean? And then I let the Virgo mind take over and go, okay, what's this shit? What's the breakdown, here? What are the numerological and astrological and Kabbalistic, kind of meanings here? So
Yeah. I think that's
yeah,
what I like about it, that I probably could benefit more from in my readings too. I mean, I do always try to keep it practical, but my sense of practical is like your imagination is reality. That's practical to me. That's
fuck
that's
yeah,
like, it's like, what do you mean that's the most practical thing? But you do have a way of synthesizing, and I know you cater your readings to me, to for who I am, but like you do have this ability to kind of bring these concepts down to earth, right? That's the Virgo moon aspect of it. I love this. So explain, your business is just getting off the ground. You're doing this. I forced you to do this in some regards, but like I forced you to do it because A, you're really good at it. B, I know that this is for the people who want to know the connections between these things, like these seemingly disparate but very much connected modalities like alchemy, astrology, tarot, and Buddhism. Like you have a way of kind of like, you study this, the Virgo moon in you has dissected this. The Pisces sun in you has dissected this. Um, and you're doing a really special thing that I haven't encountered. Like I've gone pretty deep into tarot world, and I've come across a lot of different people who are doing different things, all many I should say, amazing in their own rights, and all offering something unique. But as someone who does this now professionally, I like have a strong endorsement for what you've been doing. It's like I'm glad to hear other people have had that reaction too, because it's just very apparent. So like clearly your feedback is you're supposed to be doing this. So
yeah,
why don't you talk about two things here? Why don't you talk about your aspirations for what you're doing? And why don't you talk about some of your fears too? So people can understand that this is like, I think a lot of people are opening up to the mystic arts as not a, you know, job, like, hey, this is like what I do to make money now. This is my career. But like, there's some energy exchange here that makes sense. And if it involves money, so be it. I'm not going to let my conception of what that is stand in the way. So, like, can you talk a little bit about your aspirations and your fears? In the Celtic Cross, your ninth card position. Talk about what's going on there for you with this, because it's very powerful, and I want people to know that.
well, clearly I feel called, and not just from you, from the CryptoSync server. I mean, which you and I both know, we somehow set that up for each other,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
We were dreaming each other alive here.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, man, I so much want to be able to help people, lead them home to themselves, um, and help them to find those places in their lives where they can erase that line between the sacred and the mundane, and really, um, yeah. In alchemy, there's an acronym, vitriol, right? I don't remember the Latin, but essentially what it says is enter into the earth, and by rectifying what you find there, you will uncover the philosopher's stone.
Yes.
So that's that's what I'm all about, man. Is like I said, I wanted to be very real with kind of all the issues that I've had in my life, because I want people to know that I feel where they're at. I feel their pain very, very much so. The suffering is real, the struggle is real here. And when I can make that connection with somebody, and help them see stuff within them that they need to see, that's boy, that's quite a gift.
Well,
A gift to the
yeah.
community. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's something that I very much know exactly what you're talking about, having done this now for a month and a half or so. It was something I would not have known could be so rewarding, because I never, it's not like it's commoditized, but I never set a structure around this particular form of like energy exchange.
Hmm.
And there's something so fucking, because the person who you're giving the reading to totally, like, I'm always, at first I was like, oh, do they, like, wow, like who would do like this? But now it's like, oh my God, like they get this shit. It inevitably turns into a longer reading than it was intended to be. So all the times are always wrong, and more importantly, a connection that it's like, holy shit! Like a these cards told them, or their chart told them exactly what they needed to hear. B,
Yeah.
by me being this vessel and just like delivering it to them and getting the fuck out of the way and just interpreting the signs here that they've laid out for themselves, like what another rewarding position to be in. So yeah, I
Hmm.
I love it. So what are you afraid of with launching a business like this?
Oh man, that nobody's gonna come. Which has not been the case, right? I've had good friends from the server, and from the outside world tap me and utilize my services. But yeah, I'm afraid that what I feel are my true gifts, to be able to help people directly, are going to go unused. You know what I mean? And um, because, like I said, with the heart math coaching, helping other people to find themselves, that's number one for me. And I feel like, um, as a Pisces sun, and as a person who's gone through a lot of different sorts of things, and had a lot of crazy fucking life experiences, I can empathetically occupy somebody else's position, and help them out.
Well, I will say this. Your Jupiter, the boon giver, Zeus, is in your first house, and that's your house of self. And it's not just your conception of self, but it's, your ego, it's how you find worth. And that transcends all other, aspects, because that's really what you're projecting out in this world. And so, you know, while he is in square with your Mars in Aquarius, which means that movement may be a little more difficult to get through, it does mean forward movement is happening. And um, through your friendships, through the house of friendships where your Mars is, I think that's going to be pretty powerful for you. And I would imagine anyone who would be coming to a reading for you would feel as though they're talking to a close friend, which is how I've always felt, man, as we've gone through this process too. So where can people find you if they're like, okay, I'm sold? This guy was just super vulnerable. Noah also said he knows, and and I'll make this clear in the intro and the outro, like, you give me a text reading every day, and I'm just like, holy shit. I'm usually showing someone next to me, like, look how fucking crazy on point this is. Um, where can people find and book a reading with you?
I am on Arcane Hearts Tarot.com, and I'm also on Instagram at Arcane Hearts Tarot. So hit me up on Instagram, DM me, and we can discuss some things there. Come and schedule with me, and we can do a reading. Also, I'm constantly on CryptoSync, so definitely, if you're interested in joining that, man, folks, family, please come and find me. We can talk. We can be
I've
friends.
I've obnoxiously gated it, but it's such a like I've never felt more secure about gating anything before because A, it's crypto. B, it's like the sanctity of what is crypto sync is because of the caliber of people who are there. And like if you
Yeah,
pay, even if it's not that much over the time you're in there, but if you have to pay to get in, like you keep the riffraff out. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And it's also like the amount is like cheap enough that like I will totally refund your money if you're a dick. So like I don't care about like there's no like, oh, I spent it on it's like $50. You got that shit. I'm gonna give it back to you. But anyway, yeah, it's a magical place. I'm gonna keep that threshold up. But you do not have to be a member to experience Sean's reading. So go to his website. Let's end with the three and then bonus question, the foundational questions. What's your favorite color?
green,
What's your favorite number?
9.
What's your favorite animal?
Sharks, but I want to talk about that for just a second because
Yeah.
my favorite animal is the great white shark, right? The big guy with the awesome face. But the one that is like my spirit animal is the hammerhead. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah. Now check this out. Virgo moon, Pisces sun, hammerhead. They have, that weird shape of their head. Actually, they have sensory organs all along the bottom of that pick up the magnetic frequency of the earth. And so in schools, the hammerheads will follow the lava, the lava flows.
Oh,
Yeah. So
interesting.
yeah, the water in the earth, man.
Very interesting. I'm gonna also before we leave, after we get from your practical tip, I'm gonna tell you the cards I pulled for you. Um, what's a practical tip that's helped you in your life that you could share with people listening?
Breathe into the heart.
That's good. That's practical. That's really fucking practical. That's actually really true. It's very Ram Dassian too. All right, so I pulled the page of I do three cards. Page of Wands, Two of Cups, Seven of Wands, which to me is like pretty classic here for what you're doing and what you're experiencing, right? So, Page of Wands, and I also look at it alchemically now. You taught me that as much as anyone else. Wands, fire, cups, water, wands, fire. So, the Page of Wands, right? You're starting this movement into a whole new domain. You have the three pyramids behind you. You also have the cloak emblazoned with salamanders. I'm using the Rider Waite here.
Hmm.
And you have a yellow cloak symbolizing intellect, creativity, innocence, joy. It's like the sun personified, and also boots there as well. But you also have orange pants or stockings, they look like. Nice. And those that symbolizes orange is a blending of the red and the yellow, of the movement, of the fire, and the creativity and the intellect. So strong foundation, you're a page, Robert and the alchemical, right? The ladies. So that's an amazing platform in which to launch yourself from. You also then had the Two of Cups, right? We all know what the Two of Cups is. It's fucking on my Instagram with the future, mask off. It's the harmony between the masculine and the feminine. It's the hermetic symbol. What do they call that? Caducus, is that what it's called?
Caduceus.
Caduceus. That's what it comes
Yeah.
when you only read shit and don't hear it. Caduceus, with the lion coming at the top. So you have a water sign ultimately culminating in a fire sign with Leo there. And then Seven of Wands is like my new favorite card in the Rider Waite, because it shows this guy, he staked out his motherfucking position. Like, and now he has to defend it from himself and everyone else. Ultimately, it's just himself. He's wearing the green tunic, symbolizing that he's got growth. Still got to grow a little bit, but that's great because there's room to grow. There's so much more to experience. Underneath that is, again, the yellow. Yellow is big. If you're into like color magic and any of this stuff, you got it all over these Rider Waite. Again, that's intellect, creativity. That's your guiding touch zone. And, the wands aren't touching anything. There's nothing going on there. There's this just like a defensive posture. You just have to defend the ground that you've staked out for yourself against anything else, internal doubt, external situations. That is what ultimately leads to the fulfillment of what you're trying to do. So good cards, man. All upright too. I do reversals with the Rider Waite, but none came up reversed. So
Perfect.
there you go, man. All
Right
right.
on.
All
Hey,
right, dude. This has been awesome.
yeah, yeah, it's been awesome, Noah. Thanks. Hey, and big love to your family. Big love to my family. And
Yeah.
big love to the Synchronicity family.
Yeah. Synchronicity. I'm with it, man. Peace. Thanks for listening to that episode. A reminder, go check out Sean at arcaneheartstarot.com. Go book a session with him because you're smart and you like good things and you know that doing good things is smart for you. Listen, speaking from direct experience, I've gotten a lot of readings from a lot of people, especially in the past few months. Put this one near to the top, friends. Rate and review this podcast. Join the Synchronicity community. And what I mean by that is the email list. And let's all welcome Jake, my new assistant. He is fucking awesome. He's already coming up with like the best ideas. Shit is just going to get like, when things start to get way better, know that it's like basically his ideas and like him executing shit that I didn't have the bandwidth to do. So thanks, Jake. That's it for this week because I will be in the city with Whitma tomorrow. I hope to see you there. I will see you next week with some other episodes and more guests. Bye-bye. Oh, yeah, and happy imagining.